Welcome to the Short Funk Podcast. I'm Tom Barbalet. Today I'm going to talk a little bit more about this persona thing that I'm trying to embody for the Kickstarter, the music around the Kickstarter and these ideas. There are various political perspectives that I put out in these Short Funk recordings, and to a certain extent Stone Ape and these kind of things, which to me at least seem relatively coherent. Like, I can go back, I've got sources that back them up. I feel, in general, very positive associated with this information, and it's information that's rarely talked about, rarely embodied in anything. Through this thinking, I'm also consuming a lot of documentaries currently, and I just pick off a documentary or two from iTunes. They have some curious documentaries. I'm watching iTunes documentaries currently because I'm kind of saturated with Netflix documentaries. I had a similar pattern with Netflix documentaries, and I dug pretty deep into the catalogue. But the thing that interests me with iTunes documentaries is I know what's in the Netflix catalogue. So the iTunes ones give different options. And some of them are quite interesting, and some of them are quite strong, associated with the history of the Black Panthers, associated with a raid on an FBI office and documents being stolen. Some of them haven't been that good. But through this, I'm forming a view that a lot of the stuff that I talk about in this context, this political manifesto, for want of a better term, there's echoings of this in the 1960s and early 1970s, particularly, the racism stuff, the anti-war stuff. I mean, all this stuff. The racism stuff is broadly called civil rights, but it actually refers, I think, very strongly to institutional racism that still exists today. So, in creating this block of text that represents these ideas, I'm transferring these ideas, or at least the history of these ideas, onto the pseudonym character associated with the music. And it's quite an interesting process because I can actually write this stuff quite quickly, particularly using Dragon Dictate. And it follows very logical flows, and it really is quite curious to me that this information, at least from my perspective, from what I consume, is relatively unique and not really talked about in direct consequential ways. So, to this thing, I put this manifesto, for want of a better term, together. Fits in with the music. It explains a lot behind the music. It also functions as something that can easily be offered in a Kickstarter, aside from, all the other stuff that's normally offered with a Kickstarter. And I'm starting to wonder whether I break this thing into two things. Whether I do a Kickstarter associated with this music, and then use that learning perhaps to do a Kickstarter associated with the Mushroom Boy. And in that light, no doubt this will be a topic for a future Short Funk recording, but I just wanted to put it out there. Tom Barbalet in San Jose, signing out.